It's live, apparently.
Okay, can you send me a link so I can send it out?
Yeah, yeah, sure thing. Um, we're definitely prepared, everyone. Don't stress. Well, that's it. Situation we're bereft with here is YouTube has stepped up its censorship game to an all new level because now it has very imperialistic means to escalate its censorship of anti-war voices, not just pro-Russian voices, anti-war voices.
You know, that seems to be the name of the game here. It's not enough to just say you don't want the enemy talking. They don't want anyone saying anything against them. If you can't justify the war, shut up.
It's like Specky V says, quote, but only Asiatic countries can be Orwellian, end quote. That's what they try and purvey in our minds, that China is going to control you, or Russia is going to control you, or any other nation that is of the East, they're going to control your lives. And you know what? Those things definitely do happen in them countries because they're capitalist countries, not because they're Eastern countries. And it's just the disgusting mentality of liberalism. They'll always make you feel that we're more freer than the East. We're one of the least free places in the world, if not the least free places. The only reason there's this semblance of quasi-freedom here is because the labor aristocracy get to buy their freedom while everyone else suffers in squalor.
Why do you hate freedom?
You're
Yeah,
against
literally,
freedom.
yeah. Well, we wouldn't do that because we love freedom and we're freedom because freedom.
I mean, it's like I know Metallica are very problematic when it comes to politics, but there's one line that really suits with this. Freedom no longer frees you. And that really suits in line with the Americanistic and in general Anglosphere idea of imperialism. We're freeing the world. We're freeing the world when actually they're imprisoning the world. What was so free about the Belgian Congo other than its lack of rules?
Well, probably getting your arm cut off because you didn't mine enough.
Mining in mines at the age of 5 or 6 years old.
You got to instill values in them young.
That's the way that their mind is set, though. They see it as like
It is.
they see it as this like where else would they be if we didn't give them jobs? I've actually heard liberals argue this, not even fascists, liberals, where they're like, well, what else are they supposed to do? I heard someone defending like the sex industry, not in the way with not defending sex workers, defending the sex industry because it provides jobs for those who wouldn't have them otherwise. Not looking at the fact that the only reason they're going into those jobs is because they don't have them otherwise. And what really hits me hard about the use of child labor at the most excruciating of fashions in the third world is that that exact style of child labor is where my disability was born. That's where it comes from. So there are millions, if not billions, of people who have a scar on their family, whether it's still an ongoing matter or not. The child labor, I mean, they have a scar on their family that trauma can reignite, that can cripple them for life, and they live in a world that is much less forgiving than mine.
It's. I remember the way that one of the things was the European colonizers would go in and they'd start up a mine and they'd dig this mineral out of the earth and then turn around to the African population and say, "Come on, work in the mine, we'll pay you." No, we we live in a village or we have a farm or something. We don't need to work there. We don't want to. Oh my God, you're so lazy. They just don't want to work. No, so why would they work for you when they've already got everything they want?
And what was their response to deal with that? Oh, well, we'll just force them to work. South Africa's a perfect example. African people didn't want to work the next to slave labor that they were doing they were forcing them to go into, so they just forced them into slave labor. Throughout the Cold War, so many times of African people being swept up off the streets and finding themselves waking up on someone's farm.
Yeah, so one of the things they did was force people off their land.
And there was that report, I think, what was it, a year ago, from Guatemala about that guy and a load of other people who had escaped being child slaves, making Nestle's chocolate.
Oh yeah, the Nestle chocolate. Yeah, that's one. Don't sell chocolate in Russia because that would be supporting evil. They have fucking slaves.
Literally made with slaves. And they actually even turned around, so they made a decree. They had to turn around and state, uh, we don't even know. What do you mean you don't know? It's either yes or no, and they said, it's a possibility some of our cocoa is sourced from slavers. It's, what, choose not to buy it. It's this intelligent thing of corporations where they make it so hard to pinpoint who made the decision that all they have to do is sack someone and distract people, which they did by quote making the M&Ms sexy, end quote. I'll leave that to everyone's mind if they really want to speculate on that. Oh no, it was making them less sexy. That was it, because Tucker Carlson had a mad rant about what are they gonna do. They've made the M&Ms androgynous. What are they gonna do next? They didn't make them androgynous. There was still very specifically male or female M&Ms. They just didn't make them sexualized because they're fucking M&Ms. Like, what the fuck?
It was such a stupid thing to be angry about. Like, why is this the line? Goddamn liberals have gone too far.
Everyone has had a lovey-dovey relationship with the green M&M. Let's be real.
No, my childhood crush.
What's next? Looney Tunes?
Is Buster and Babs Bunny gonna be transformed into like androgynous Gen Z fucking something?
They're gonna make Daphne and Scooby-Doo wear trousers, even though there are times where she did wear trousers, but we won't acknowledge that.
God damn.
This is... Oh, sorry, go on.
I was just gonna say, the first world problems. Holy shit.
And it absolutely fits in line with the issue here. Like the way that they like to distract from the evils of this society and all these problems, but they're so willing to you know, they're happy for all this to be allowed in the public space. They do nothing to stop it from existing. All they do is try and distract people. They're not even using that aim of trying to distract people during this war. They are outright trying to shut down people who have a big enough voice, whom is being a big enough problem to the Anglosphere imperial interests.
Yeah.
Is an interesting thing about this platform for people to consider. In 2019, they banned a load of words, and no one knew what words they banned. And around the 2019, someone compiled a list of words where things like Alabama, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, autism, and autist, because the big autism lobby has too much power, so they're suppressing us. But there's all sorts of stupid words. The word allegedly is in there. And allegations, like, that's a journalistic term. You can't suppress a journalistic term. That should be illegal, especially in with a corporation like Google, which is an American one, where they're supposed to subscribe to this right of free speech. To speak about someone without defamating someone is a right of free speech.
Well, I mean, if I'm not allowed to say allegedly, then I'll say then for sure, definitely. Your fault. You blocked me from saying allegedly.
Sue me, bitch.
I'm just following your guidelines.
And we've seen them kick anti-war voices off this platform. It's not something that hasn't happened before. Yet, anyone who's been on this platform, I know it seems weird mentioning this in the political discussion, but anyone who's been on this platform for the last, what's it been, 11, 12 years now, will know who Onion Boy is or Onision is. Now, that motherfucker is a pedophile groomer who even acquired the legal guardianship over a 16-year-old after grooming them from the age of 13 through their husband, Kai. Now, this person is still active on social media, has not been arrested. I mean, I think Chris Hansen has got the FBI on him in recent years, but that's not really done anything. The guy is still an at-large personality whom YouTube did not give a shit about the fact that he was freely going about his things. I mean, they only eventually got demonetized, and Patreon only got rid of him because Chris Hansen brought stuff up. The guy is still out and about. He still has shit tons of followers. Not as much as he used to. But he's still, he still keeps setting up all his websites and trying to groom people. The guy, YouTube has this very double standard where they don't give a shit about a lot of these creeps. I mean, fuck me. That dickhead Haas releases all of his stupid shit onto YouTube as well, and he hasn't been suppressed off the platform. And he says some of the most sexist and disgusting shit you could ever say about a woman.
Yeah, like that's not even like, and it's not even relevant to what he's talking about. Like if Luna Oi disagrees with him over such and such issue, then turn around and call her a race traitor for dating a white person. I'm sorry, how is this really that much different than standing there in the South and screaming miscegenation?
Also, that's presuming that by her going with a white person means that white person now controls her life. Luna Roy is an individual woman with a lot of fucking power behind her ideas and her thoughts and what she wants to do with herself. For Haz to ascribe his sexist views onto someone like Luna Roy, someone who is much more, has got much more achievements into their belt than he'll ever have in his life. Like, I got my disagreements with Oi. I got all my disagreements with her, but at the end of the day, this is disgusting behavior, and fucking Luna Roy's never done anything horrible to anyone. Hell, even when I've been really harsh of criticism with her on Twitter, I've said something nice not long after, and I've still had engagement with her. Like, she's not a person who is malicious. Like, she's not someone who takes things straight to heart when you criticize her, so long as you're not being a cunt, you know what I mean? Like, so this is just beyond disrespectful.
It is the act of a frustrated, immature person.
A man-child.
If that's what term you want to use, but yeah, yeah, I guess kind of the same thing.
Look at you being the cool kid who uses the PC terms.
Well, no, I just wanted to be as specific as possible.
Oh, I'm just guessing with you. Because I'm normally the one who's really hard-assed to these sort of things. So. But yeah, no, he is an adult stuck in the mindset of a kid, and that is normally a thing you see with a lot of people who are pedophilic. Look at Vosh. I very rarely mention him on this channel, so everyone better take a shot because it's the only chance you got. Guy literally plays games for 3-year-olds on his streams. And then promotes that he likes child pornography whilst playing the same games. YouTube has not kicked him off the platform.
No, of course not, because, well, let's face it. In the case of some of them, it's about money.
Absolutely.
If somebody, I mean, look, if like people like Vosh, I can't say for sure Vosh himself, but people like Vosh, there was that big leak that some of them made like millions of dollars a year. I mean, how much is Twitch getting off of that? I mean, what are they going to do? Just not take their cut of multi-million dollars a year? I don't think so.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of people who've reported on how YouTube is very, very selective with how it deals with things. It does not like to shoot down any channel with over 1 million views. And Bad Boy was mentioning that like he hates the fact that every time someone mentions Haz, they refer directly to him because Haz is Lebanese, and I would prefix Shiite with supposedly Shiite, my brother, because the thing I would say about our boy is that the guy, if he's a Shiite, he is the worst Shiite I have ever interacted with. He has no respect for the culture and history which he comes from, and he has no respect for the East of which he pretends to defend. He went and envisioned the Mongolians as a horde when he was called I'm not gonna say it because this is an old British colonial slur, but Monga, and you know what the rest of it is. That
It's
is a
important.
old British colonial slur that means being Down syndrome and Mongolian. And when he was called that, he then reiterated the word and said, "Yes, I am that," and then claimed the Mongolian horde to be the horde, which is actually a Western envisionment of Mongolia. Yes, they did invade, but I wouldn't use horde to define things.
Yeah, it's conquering army when Europe does it, but invading a horde when people of color do it.
Absolutely. Even though when you look at like how much worse Anglospheric colonialism was compared to the Mongolian Empire, you start to really envision things. The Mongolian Empire was fucked up. And they committed genocides just like the Roman Empire did. None of these empires committed genocides on the scale of the British Empire, the US Empire, the French Empire, the Spanish Empire, and the German Empire.
Yeah, and also that was socialism.
It's all socialism's fault.
Socialism with empire and rape characteristics.
Is that so? That's National Socialism you're referring to?
I don't. Haas was the one who called it socialism, so I don't know how you would define. You have to ask him how to define that.
He did call the Ottomans socialist, which is a big insult to the Arab people, the Arab freedom fighters and the Assyrian freedom fighters, who were fighting against the Ottoman Empire developing capitalism. I don't know if people know this, but the Ottoman Empire at the end of its reign was a capitalist empire, or at least trying to be. The British Empire had a problem with them being a competition in that region, so they did everything in their power to undermine them, involving using Lawrence of Arabia to manipulate revolutions, essentially. A lot of these groups that Lawrence of Arabia messed around with were left-wing groups.
Yeah, that's. I don't get how any of this nonsense is supposed to work.
It absolutely doesn't. But the system is absolutely fine with these dickheads at large, and what's it? But as soon as someone has an actual stance against this order, they're gonna shut you down quick as possible. Because it's all right allowing dissertating voices to a degree, but now that communism is becoming a bigger name, socialism is becoming an even bigger name, and anarchism has taken a very large leap as well forward. I know it's taken two steps backwards because they've always got the petty bourgeoisie ruining their struggle, but the lumpen anarchists are taking the biggest leap forward out of anyone at the moment in the first world, I'd argue. Um, Arguably because they have larger numbers, but I mean, what's it? Most Marxists are shitheads who live in functional society, what people may know as capitalist realism. And I use functional with quotations. It's not truly functional. It's visually, and it feels functional. It's disconnected. It's in a bubble. So they don't experience the real world properly. That's why they can look at this like it's just Russia versus America, and we need to side with Russia because Russia will be the good guys because America's the bad guys. It's proper like movie shit.
Yeah, but reasons.
So what people really need to keep questioning YouTube, and anyone who can be asked to write any emails to them would be go for it, because I ain't savvy for typing. I got a channel to yell at YouTube. People need to start questioning this platform as to what the fuck it's doing. The fact that pedophiles, groomers, sex pests, and rapists can stay on this platform. But what's it? Um, they but as soon as someone takes an anti-war position, in the time of crisis, when world war is round the corner and everyone is at their most terrified point, people are wondering whether nuclear war is on the table at this point, and people aren't allowed to talk about it. But Vosh can go on about how much he wants to jack off to kids because he's a fucking pedophile, and he's still up on this platform because he makes them loads of money.
Well, his strange pedo-y shit is not a threat to the Empire. I think that there's a growing kind of anti-war sentiment, which a grassroots one, I should say. And I think that that's what they're worried about.
You know what this ties to? What we saw back in 2019, 2020 was we saw lumpen class consciousness strike out. They burnt down police stations. That ain't the labor aristocracy. They ain't got the balls to do that. Like that was lumpen African and lumpen native and lumpen Puerto Rican. Well, native again, I guess, but Puerto Rican. Even lumpen white people all coming together because of solidarity. Because the only people who understand that it's more than just George Floyd, and it's more than just the things that are happening now. It's centuries of violence. So the people who are on the streets with their brothers and sisters, seeing this violence happen day in, day out. And what we saw was their consciousness arise. And as soon as their consciousness arose, as soon as it got to the point where police stations were being burnt down and massive riots of people with even arms were coming up in the streets, the labor aristocracy ditched this movement like crazy. They sided with the Democrats, made an organization called Black Lives Matter, which is not the real movement. It never was, never will be. And they stabbed it in the back. It was exactly the same what happened in the civil rights movement when the Black Panthers formed. As soon as the Black Panthers formed, white people started having a problem.
You could say whatever you want until what you say challenges things. You can do whatever you want until you present a threat.
Those who are seen as the third-class citizens in society, as soon as they have a power to dictate, that is seen as a threat to the order. I was speaking with an African comrade from America about the way that eugenics is very hard baked into the capitalist mindset. So those who are in colonized and disabled positions, and God fucking bless that you end up stuck in the situation of being both colonized and fucking disabled, because then the system is going to absolutely treat you like shit. Unless you got the protections of being in the labor aristocracy, which in a lot of places even that doesn't work because racism can still overmatch that area. I mean, we know black comrades in the US who are middle class and they get chased out of their own neighborhoods and treated like shit. We saw that happen with Black Red Guard himself, the mistreatment of him. Unless you got that protection, you're seen as a third-class citizen. Any problem that you have is seen as you being a pest and a berefter. Society has already given you enough. That's what people think. They think that society's already given you enough. Why are you asking for more? Why are you still complaining? They do it with women's rights. They try and claim women's rights have been solved. They've only been solved for a portion of the middle class. Not even all the middle class. Just a portion of it. That's it. Everyone else is still fucking suffering, especially in the lower class. Like, what's it? They push a lot of toxic masculine shit away, and they create an environment that enforces that onto us to survive, to a point where there's a lot of women who end up having to take a more masculine way to survive because of the environment they're predicated in and the fear that they are living in, and there's only one or two ways that things end up going in that sort of situation a lot of the time.
Yeah, saying it's been solved and noticing that, prostitution disproportionately affects the poor. Well, I tell you this, when something disproportionately affects the poor, I don't really see how it's liberating.
It's exploitation, and it's them doing what they do with imperialism, but within the home country. The way that I would look at it is that the treatment of the lumpen proletariat is, you could say it's the in-between between the treatment You know how colonialism and fascism are very similar, but fascism is like colonialism within the home country and the way that they've reorganized everything. I know that colonialism exists in the home country, but I mean bringing the hard line, very much more oppressive 1700s era capitalism back to try and regurgitate things. Well, the lumpen proletariat already end up being thrown in that position. I mean, it's what gives them that solidarity with colonized people. I know it doesn't always occur. Lumpen aristocrats are a problem of a different story, but with the lumpen proletariat, they are in a nasty situation. Um, we see that the bourgeoisie in crisis now are in a position where they're considering to bring factories back into the first world, and they're going to literally ram. As far as I'm concerned, I can't see any way they're going to convince the bourgeoisie to do it without ramming the massive unemployed populations that they've got into factories for low wage work, because these people need work. The work's limited. Are people really going to complain at this point with the crisis we're in? I doubt it.
Not to mention, I always go back to the tendency of the rate of profit to fall, and I consider that to be largely the cause of economic crisis and even war itself. No matter what you do, you're not gonna beat the cost of Chinese labor. The only thing you can do is ban Chinese products. And you know how bad they'd screw themselves if they did that.
Oh yeah, definitely. They're in a catch-22. That's why I think they want to bring the factories back so that they can try and produce to a level similar to them. They want to try and match up. Um, Lumpen Skinhead said, I think in a lot of ways the rise of the Pat Sox Morpinites in the CPUSA is a reaction to the rise of the Lumpen communists and Lumpen anarchists. Bless. Oh, Bad Boy wants their attention. Did you hear what's happening to the Romani people in Ukraine? Are we experiencing another genocide? I haven't heard.
No, I haven't. Lumpen killed Antifa Maoist skinhead. Is that who I think it is?
Yeah, it's my G.
Yeah.
I have spoken to him, and I do want to fold him into into working with me a lot more with MRN, because he undermines himself all the time and says he's not as well minded as he is, but the guy's a fucking whiz. Like he I know I've spoke with Nat about it, but like the guy is a absolute whiz. Um, Luther tied up and humiliated for trying to steal during um sorry, one second. The title was cut off. Luther tied up and humiliated for trying to steal during Russian attack on Kiev. Um, Civilians still living in Ukrainian cities are carrying out their own punishments on those caught looting, as supplies run low and with the Russian army encircling them. And so they're missing a perspective here, because the mirror is a bit tied up in Ukraine's side of things. What they're missing is that Ukraine, as I'd spoken previously when talking about the racist white supremacy of the Ukrainians at the moment, the Ukrainian a lot of the Ukrainian people, not just Azov battalion types or the military itself, but shop owners and other people like that, very racist at the moment. And as we know, the Romani are one of the most, if not the most, oppressed peoples in that region. They've been denying people the accessibility to shops, at least until the point of which the shops have been ransacked by everyone else, and there's maybe a few packets of crisps there. They've been not allowing them access to healthcare, not allowing them access to support, not allowing them to properly refuge off. They've been grabbing people and sticking them into camps to basically humiliate them for days, and then eventually let them go. The bus wouldn't even take them all the way to the border. It made them walk for miles for days in the cold. It's madness. Like the racism going on in Ukraine is crazy.
As I know, the Azov battalion is guilty of some very... allegedly, they've committed outright genocide against groups like massacres, and there's mass graves of people of color, and I wouldn't be surprised if some Russians too, but
It's one of those things where, what's it? I wish Russia actually did care, because if they did care, they'd have armed the anarchists 8 years ago. There's an anarchist group fighting in Ukraine against these fascists. They'd have armed them 8 years ago. They wouldn't just be focusing on Nazbols with Alexander Dugin. Like it's nauseating, because I want someone to get rid of the fascists. The people constantly, especially these fucking social patriot violins, want to, what's it? They want to try and envision that we're not for the down of these fascists. No, we want them down just as much as anyone, if not absolutely the most. The problem that really berefs me is if Russia can't deal with its own Nazis and are getting Nazbols, which are just Nazis with extra steps, to advise the military and the little small fighting groups in Donbass, then or Donetsk, as the English wrongly call it all the time. Um, Then it shows that Russia is in a position where it's hypocritical. Why would we believe that the next government they put in place wouldn't be fascist too? But someone does need to stop those genocides. It's a tricky situation.
yeah, it's you've seen the meme about the fascist groups that are in the Russian military meeting up and then pointing fingers at the fascists in the Ukrainian military.
You know what though? There probably are some soldiers in the Russian military who absolutely believe what they're doing is a true anti-fascist move. They probably will be truthful to that, but we got to understand that military doctrine normally follows the politics of the current nation in power, and Russia's current politics it's been fascist since Putin come to power.
Unfortunately, I mean, it's pretty hard to not notice that Putin has been unquestionably in power for a very long time.
You could even say the same with Xi Jinping. There's quite a similarity between their two models, although I'd argue what makes China stand out quite interestingly as their model of imperialism is the exact same one Oswald Mosley wanted for the British Empire. Pay the country's money so that they can build institutions, develop jobs, schools, roads, and then they can, Oswald Mosley didn't go into extraction of resources, of course, because he was trying to advertise himself, but he was advertising it to the British people on the it will end the immigration, I promise, sort of plea, because he's a big racist.
Yeah.
I was speaking to that about it. Mosleyism is the new is the only form of 20th century fascism that I think that will survive, because it takes a bit of Hitler and a bit of Mussolini and mucks it up into a more Anglo-spherical ideology. It's a lot more dialectical, as Net put it, and it's I mean, both British, American, and as I've dictated with the way that the Chinese foreign policy system and their actual government structure functions, a lot of these people are taking on this much more dialectical form of fascism that you could argue fits in line with Mosleyism. I mean, the BNP actually had a bust of Mosley on the desk of the leader. He still has that bust, Nick Griffin.
Okay. Yes. All right. Well, as long as you're open about it.
Yeah, I need to.
I remember Nick Griffin.
He's funny.
It wasn't a bomb that he had, it was a firework. No, it was a nail bomb.
It was
There's a
indeed
big
a
difference.
Bomb. And you know what? A firework can very much become a dangerous weapon if you're using it like a moron. So calling it a firework doesn't make it any less dangerous. Like,
No, you see, the thing was they were criticizing because they had one of the BNP MPs had a history with bombs, and he said, "Well, no, it wasn't a bomb; it was a firecracker. No, it was a nail bomb." He was found building goddamn nail bombs in an area and a time in which nail bombs were blowing up gay clubs. Yeah, I think that's maybe a little bit different than a simple firework.
You get what I mean, though? Like, they try to undermine it with such a stupid idea. It doesn't matter what weapon he was using if he was caught using it with an intent to kill people, is what I mean.
Yeah, see, the thing is, they couldn't prove any intent.
I guarantee if he was a communist, he'd be in prison.
Oh, definitely.
If he was a communist, then it was banks or something that was going off at the same time. Correlation, causation, in. Especially with a place like Britain, like the only way he got off with that is because he's a hard right winger. Like a place like Britain is not very forgiving with the legal system. Like we have different forms of life sentences that vary massive degrees of years, and it's ridiculous. It's not as bad as it used to be these days, but fucking hell, they can like they can imprison you like the Americans can essentially, but without the death row shit. We haven't got that shit. It's not that bad. We don't have the mass incarceration rate either because we're smart about the way that we use our police state. We use more of a surveillance state than a brutal force. But
don't worry, we won't kill you. Just make you wish you were fucking dead.
But I'd argue the future holds Mosleyism with Orwellian sort of principles. Like that's where I would see things because it makes sense that the most Anglo-spherical one would fit because, as Lenin pointed out, the English industrialization and colonialization platform is exactly what the Americans did to build their capitalism. And actually, if you look at their imperialism, but if you look at the development of Chinese imperialism, Russian imperialism, EU, any empire that's ever trying to build itself up, they'll always try and take a hold of parts of the Anglo-spherical development depending on what stage they are in the imperial structure. I mean, Lenin did go as far as to even talk about the demise of the US empire and how a United Nations of Europe would be the conglomeration of the European empires to challenge US capital and take over the imperial system again. Britain has its own little ticket. I mean, one thing they got to understand, a lot of the imperialists have read these books. They're not morons. Some of them are morons, but some of them are not. The smartest politicians, and this is why they're the petty bourgeoisie, the most useful thing to have as politicians, because they're part of the intelligentsia, is that they have the greater angle of ability to look into these things. And you can see with the map of fascism, especially with those who, in former communist countries, where they have taken massive considerations of the development of imperialism from the model of Lenin. And China's first thing it does when it turns back capitalist is make itself the workshop of the world, which in chapter 4 of Imperialism, the export of capital, Lenin talks specifically about how Britain made itself the workshop of the world to develop an excess of capital from its an excess of finance capital from its industrial capital to which it can invest in developments abroad, making industrial capital now dominated by the finance capital to which funds it, and therefore be able to export the scale of their production and still hold the conglomeration or monopoly of production, because all the other empires will still have to export their production to the British or ask the British to settle production there and have their production owned by the British to actually get anything started. That's why a lot of businesses in America were owned by the British in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and America went on a massive buyout of British businesses to eliminate British capital power within its country post 1910.
Yeah, but my Belt and Road.
My Belt and Road. Yeah, because of how like squashed together that word is. Like, I always thought it was Belton Road, but it's Belton Road is like Belt and Road. I'm like, come on, man. Come on with a better name. But it's literally just let's do the Silk Road again, but with tarmac. Romanism, it's the core angle of imperialism. I mean, Romanism has infected a lot of places in the world, and do you know what? You don't have to even have the history tied to the Romans to really go on it. I think people misunderstand how material conditions work. the East had its own material conditions devoid of what the Romans were doing without the Romans even touching them that could match those conditions as well, because these things cropped up because of class and its relations. And that's why we can look to history of colonialism, East and West. But what's it? It was the Romanism that became the most brutal form of imperialism. And that's why YouTube wants to silence us. They know how brutal this system is. They're a part of it. Google is massively tied in with the U.S. military and the U.S. government. They're part of what the corporate Democrats, the ones who openly call themselves corporatists as well. Some of them do, and we all know what corporatism means. These fascists, these corporatists are absolutely in line with these social media and internet companies that help the military out with its developments. Military technology is one of the biggest sort of things that a lot of these companies help out with, because what they'll do is they'll conglomerate with them and they'll say, okay, government, you do some research and find out some cool shit and we'll build it for you. And that's the relationship that they have. They tried letting the companies do all the designing just on their own and in the Cold War, and that did not go very well.
It's so obvious that China is imperialist, and yet the dingus just will not see it.
I mean, in the Cold War, the British and the French actually not only gave out loans, but they gave out free money to Africans, to the African countries. Sorry, not to Africans. I nearly made them sound nice. To African nations, to the comprador. And the whole point that people don't get about this is it's to develop bourgeois institutions of power. That's the whole point of imperialism in that aspect. Like, when you're exporting capital, you give so much capital to them, even if it's not even lended, because you don't need them to owe you money to get them locked onto you. Because if you give them millions or even billions of dollars, you put them in a position where they now need more, because they're going to build massive institutions of scale. They want to be in the imperialist market. It's the best market to be in as a capitalist.
It's like we're giving you, like, it's really not much different than what it's like when the IMF moves in. Here's a bunch of development money. And by development money, what we mean is roads and seaports for us to be able to export the things that you're making. Oh, and you have to privatize all your services.
Yeah. It's the fuck mentality of this system. I get it. Like, I think a lot of this as well ties into how normalized eugenics are. You know, when they started. So you know how they had the do not resuscitate orders they were forcing onto the disabled during the coronavirus, and there was a lot of other disabled people that died for other reasons. I mean, within the first year, because of a lot of medical mishaps, kicking off of benefits, throwing out of homes, and the coronavirus itself. It was somewhere around 100,000 disabled people died within the first year in Britain. And when people found out about the do not resuscitate orders, they weren't bothered because of all the people who were marked onto that. I mean, communists were. People like Prolacult made some good content about it, but the main foundation of people were just bothered because learning disabled people were on there. And I mean, like, I would like to preface, it's nice that they're caring for the learning disabled, a bit eugenically minded that they have this, like, all that, like, will care about the learning disabled, but the elderly and the physically disabled, oof, that's a bit too much. We'll have to get rid of them, because they didn't throw a fit about that. It was just like, it was emphasized around the learning disabilities. And this gets into a problem that the way people with learning disabilities are treated as well, because this is actually defaming them as well, because they're treating them like this sort of you know, like they're treating them like they're somehow not capable of thinking for themselves in this retrospect. So it's like too harsh, like that they're beyond knowing of what berefts them. They're innocent, like this innocent portrayal of it's an archetype of like all of those people with that disability. It ignores the horrible people that can exist who have those disabilities, and it ignores the fact that it takes commitment in anyone's life, no matter how disabled or how abled you are, to do good things. Of course it does. And that those people whom do good things who are learning disabled, you are insulting by basically leveling them with everyone who is learning disabled. You're also making them like you're basically turning around and telling them that if they were not learning disabled and they were any other form of disability, or if they could actually perceive and understand that learning disabled people are just as fucking sentient as everyone else. I hate this eugenic perception that people see them as lesser minded. There's no such thing as that. Shut the fuck up. Then they would kill them because they were so willing to let the rest of them go by. The NHS wasn't kicking up a stink when it was told you need to pressure people to sign do not resuscitate orders, which means no ventilators when you die. This normalization of eugenics shows the barbaric society that we live in. They have shown you that it's clean streets, functional roads, big businesses, and all that. But it's veneer. It's veneer that comes from the funds of imperialism as they conquer the world. And they don't want you reporting conquering the world, otherwise they censor you. But imperialism funds all of this veneer. But when you coax under its shell, you see a world of hurt, despair, war, famine, death and disease, slavery, genocide, and radioactive seas.
Yeah.
There's hope, though. We are seeing the imperialist order lose the capacity to say who's specifically hegemonic now. There's, China has a bigger economy. EU and China has a bigger monopoly on trade. The US has a bigger military. So there is a balance now between three powers. I don't know what the fuck the British are doing. We'll see. But probably shitting themselves at the moment. But as the imperialists start to squabble, even before they declare world war on each other, I mean, we've already started seeing it with the Great Depression that's came. It's already caused a massive influx of communist organizations in South America, Africa, and Asia. And not only are they organizing, but many of them are taking arms for their struggle. They're fighting for their freedom, getting ready for the fight for their freedom. These next 2 decades, you are going to see revolution start to crop up like you haven't seen before, because as these imperialists start to gear up for war against each other, the third world are going to rise. They're not going to stand for this. It is going to be the same as every world war, where the colonized people get another bump against the empires because they will strike back. Soviet Union was a big hit at the Russian Empire at World War One. The smashing down of Nazism and the African and Arab freedom fighting movements that cropped out of World War Two was a push against the colonial system. 3 times the charm. They will not survive this time. And as that system gets knocked to bits, they'll have no power to keep this veneer up in this realm. You will see the brutality of this system enacted here. They will not be able to survive otherwise. This is the way the bourgeoisie work. They must have their power by any means necessary. And when the labor aristocracy starts to lose its benefits in the system, they will want to defend the bourgeoisie's need for this power, because it's the only way for them to defend their class interests in the most beneficial manner.
Like, say, you start screaming about how America's so great.
Start waving your Ukraine flag to get your coffees.
Drives me up the fucking wall. I don't even support Putin, but some of the pro-NATO people are so obnoxious. I just want to cheer for Putin just to spite them.
It does make you want to do that. I mean, every time I hear someone mention Ukraine, I always call out the hypocrisy and bring up Palestine in Yemen. I did it. What's it, even did it to pasture, but on a couple of occasions. But also the what's it uh I also constantly point out to people that the Ukrainian government is a Nazi government.
But Zelensky Jewish.
Like that changes anything? It wasn't just the Jews that the Nazis went after, and do they have to? Do, does it always have to be the same ethnicity? I mean, in Britain, Jim Dyson, the leader of an organization called the Knights Templar, I wonder what political ideology they support. Neo feudalism, of course, fascism. He turned around to a bunch of young British fascists and told them to stop their focus on Jews and focus on Muslims. And spoke of the Muslims as a race. That's where a lot of this ideation is coming from. It's coming from calling the Arabs the Muslim people. Whilst there are Arabs who are Muslim, there are also Arabs who are Christian too. There are also I guarantee there's Arabs who are all sorts of different religions. Do you know what are also Muslim people? Asian people. There's loads of Asian people that are Muslim. We're not going to turn around and go and call all of Asians the Muslims. We're not going to go, aha, yes, Bangladeshi, a Muslim country. It, these people are ridiculously disrespectful. They got no sense of respect for the Semitic people of the Orient. No respect at all. Do you know what? There are even I remember hearing that there's Korean Muslims too in the DPRK, but I know there's a mosque there for the Iranians that come and visit, and it wouldn't surprise me if the Koreans are like, ooh, wonder what's going on in there. But it wouldn't surprise me if it reached there anyway, because Islam did stretch quite far across Asia. So did Christianity. I mean, there's a large Christian base in Korea. Asian Christianity is heavily suppressed.
Um, yeah, I can see that. I mean, what is it? I once there's even like a story of a Muslim Viking, like way back.
Fucking hell.
Like they dug up his grave and he had like the crescent moon and all that on him, and like the marker on his grave, and then he had a bunch of Viking shit on him too, and like the mark on his grave said a great friend and fighter from a faraway land or something like that. So he probably was a Muslim Viking, and he was one of the community like everybody else.
Oh, do you know what? That'll probably be old enough that it would be before the the European Christians bastardized the use of the pentagram, because the pentagram is originally a Muslim symbol, not a pagan one. I think it was the French who ascribed it to paganism when they did the whole Baphomet thing. Because it was just Baphomet does not come from the Druids or the what's it or the Nords or anyone like that. It comes from a French guy in like the 14th or 15th century or something like that. I think. No, I think it's the
Yeah.
13th. I think it was the Gothic period.
And that's why we have the expression "No Nazis in Valhalla."
Hey. No, they
I
don't
mean,
have any space there. Valhalla and Elysia are places for heroes to go and die, not just specifically warriors.
but you get the sentiment.
Oh yeah, hell yeah. I like the I use the Greek form. I go about leisure. I do like it's normally the way I'll bless people who are whether metaphorically or literally fighters in their life have had struggle. I will always bless them with the way in which Elysia will carry their soul to the fields of heaven. Some people say Elysium, fields of Elysium, but I prefer Elysia. Uh, or the Elysian fields. Um, it's such an old thing. There's so many different forms of it. But it basically bit for bit follows how Valhalla works. Um, what's it? It's I'm really wondering how bad censorship is gonna get now because we're not even at the heat of war yet. It's only just started.
I really hope this doesn't escalate.
The problem is with YouTube is when censorship comes, a lot of people will complain, but then it's only a few people on the fringe who will keep trying to push against it. I mean, I've come on here and I have refused to comply to the new restrictions that would the if you don't comply to, you will never get monetized. I only ever get monetized when I've posted something that has someone else's music in or something, and they've decided to roll ads on my video so they can get um fucking money off it. Even from the little clip I showed of the Hezbollah cucking Israel, it got copyrighted. Um, it's, why there's no wrong with watching my channel with ad blockers. It stops you from having any of that bullshit. But I don't give a fuck for monetization. Like I've lived all my life poor. I can keep living my life poor. And if I was ever going to ask for a Patreon, I'd only ever do it when I've got a food project set up and I'm actually able to provide a receipted system where I am showing exactly what I'm spending my money on for the food that I'm giving out to the people, and I'm actually showing what I'm doing with it and how I'm using it to help the community. Otherwise, I don't want this to be something that benefits me or gains me. I just want to be I just want to be a voice that pierces through this issue, and that's where what you said, Jason, comes into great importance to what my structure is. Because if they get too restrictive, it could it'll fucking me over. Because I am not, if they get to a point where it's like, okay, the word Nazi or any symbol related to that means banned, not just suppressed, then the algorithm, which they call it an algorithm, but you'll find that the front page is actually hand-picked. I found this out. It's been hand-picked for the last 5 or 6 years now. So it's not about which creator is good or not. I mean, there will be suggestions from what you watch that will appear, but like things that aren't from what you watch, it's hand-picked. That's why every time you see the news, it's always the most mainstream TV news you can find. But they'll blast you down the algorithm in the suggestions area, and but that's that. I'm fine with that because I can still get my things about and I can say things as visceral as I need to say them. But if they go so more restrictive, it very easily end up screwing me over.
Yeah, there's man, there's a storm coming. There's a storm of censorship coming big time.
What's it? We're dealing with the pettiest of people at the moment. Like Caleb is someone I'm going to bring up for a second because he's someone who really pisses me off because he's someone who's quite on the veneer. He's a very pathetic guy, so it's easy to dismiss him. Like, he's really obnoxious. He talks like a moron even though he's not. Like, and then condescends to people when he does stop speaking like a moron. So it's this weird blend of him saying utterly bizarre, stupid, insane shit, and then him saying very intelligent shit, but he's talking down to you, and his intelligent shit is not intelligent because it's good, but intelligent because it's well crafted and well thought out and involves a lot of at least a very good understanding of history for him to be able to talk the way he does about things. But Caleb is someone who I hate because trying to explain to people that it's like, yes, he's a pathetic guy, but he's actually building a real life movement and requires a bit of attention is actually somewhat difficult to some people in Europe. But some people I know who I've taken it seriously because there's a guy in Switzerland who has a very similar angle to Caleb, who's basically following the Duganite trend. So there are some people who are taking it seriously. The Germans But the what's it? Um, uh, the the CPI is forming a LaRouche style cult that's following bit for bit what LaRouche did. Um, and so these people are the types of people who have no sense of decency when engaging with these people. Like if you're following LaRouche, a guy who helped who invented the Star Wars idea, um, the big space laser things to shoot down Soviet missiles, and also worked with Ronald Reagan against actual communists, uh, during the Reagan's crackdown on the Panthers and the Black Liberation Army. And LaRouche did one thing quite interestingly that Caleb always does. There's a fantasization with the British. Not that I have any problem with people having an issue with the British. I'm not a big fan of the British either. I don't recognize the concept of a British people. You've got Scottish people, English people, Cymric people, Cornish people, Gaelic people. But and the Scots are two different peoples as well, actually, technically speaking. You've got the Gaelic Scots, and then you've got the I always forget the name. Lump and Skinhead Celt will probably tell me in a second in the chat. But you know, what I remember learning about LaRouche is that LaRouche used the term British to actually refer to the Jews as a way to cover up his language, and it was a weird wordplay where the British should be controlling everything. The British are controlling American society. The British have couped American society. They have implanted themselves into our government. It's trope. It's bit for bit anti-Semitic tropism, and we know anti-Semites censor people. Sorry, Dave.
Yeah, and saw that again that with Caleb Maupin when he was doing that conference with Dugan and whatnot, and he specifically said there's a group of bankers that are working against U.S. interests, and there's Dugan nodding along with them. And it's like you just dog whistled an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. Because bankers don't sit there and think about how to screw America. They think about how to enrich themselves regardless of the consequences. It's not anti-American. It's just capitalism and how the system works. But you can see that how Caleb deliberately conflates anti-Americanism with a conspiracy against the American people.
Yeah, and what he doesn't understand is well, actually, I think he understands it, but chooses to obscure it. Because I see this with a lot of these petty bourgeois fascist types in the first world. Is that they like to ignore alienation because it proves a lot of their shit wrong. Because it shows how material conditions devoid people from reality and how devoid they themselves are from reality. But even how more devoid from reality a lot of bourgeois people are. Because I mean, the bourgeoisie, the reason they rely so much on the petty bourgeoisie and the labor aristocracy to run government, to run cultural hegemonic institutions of power is because they don't have the sense of reality to engage with that shit. They're like fucking zombies compared to everyone else. Has anyone ever looked at Bill Gates in an interview? He's a fucking loony bin and a pedophile.
Allegedly. Oh shit, can't say that.
Oh yeah, allegedly has been demonetized. It's just a monetizable word. We found out. Allegedly.
Yeah, I don't know why. Like, that's whatever.
Autism's blocked. Where's the sense?
Yeah, you're not allowed to say autism.
Then there was Caleb who, what's it? And he used the advantage of my autism card to say it verbatim. Caleb decided to call people who are against Russia retards, which I find very, very ill-minded at the fucking least, if not outright ableist at best. Drop some more weed. English moment. English moment. But we got to really think about how Nazis operate. They like to enforce censorship onto people, and I'd be really concerned for a lot of people in the Middle East as well, because what I would argue is that Caleb is trying to manipulate ideas from there. So he took Gaddafi's green book, wrote it, and added his own notes to it. Now that sounds harmless. I know a lot of people will be like, "Well, if it's just a perfect translation, where's the harm?" The issue with that is the author of the translation is seen as the main body of speak, and when you're dealing with white people as well, they're already going to show more respect to this guy. So you've got them already showing more respect to the white guy than they are to show to Gaddafi, and everyone's iffy with Gaddafi anyway because he went downhill. We all know he went downhill, so everyone's already a bit iffy anyway. But you've also got racism involved in there too, so that sends the iffiness on steads. Then you also have the fact that he's the conglomerative author, so they're already going to put more stoke into him, and then his notes are on at every point where he wants you to think a certain way, and that means that he's using actual ideas that were used to try and benefit the lives in the third world against the imperialists. I mean, Gaddafi didn't want to be reliant on a different empire. Gaddafi wanted to be reliant on his own nation. Big difference. You saw the same thing with Nasser. Um, Although, arguably, although unfortunately Nasser was assassinated, but Nasser was, in my opinion, a much stronger leader in those ideas than Gaddafi. But point is that he's spinning around ideas that were actually quite helpful to the Arab people to make them less helpful to them, because he's trying to conglomerate them into the Chinese imperialist angle. That's his biggest angle. He wants to. He's doing what a lot of British petty bourgeois and bourgeoisie wanted to do, because there was a split in the empire in around the 20s and the 30s. So a lot of people wanted to join the rise of the US empire rather than fight it. And that's what Caleb represents, the fascists that are just like, well, fuck it. If we just join their empire, we get what the British and the EU got out at the end of World War II, where at least they're not going to fall to pieces, because at the moment they're falling to pieces. He's using sewer socialism to push imperialism.
Yeah, that's it. I remember I did a video on Lyndon LaRouche years ago, like 2011, before I even really knew who he was, and it was called the Obama Endgame or something like that. And he literally claimed that Obama was working for the devil and would destroy the entire world and was the Antichrist. Um, well, the world didn't end.
Yeah, well, that's it. And why he's the Antichrist? Like, fucking hell! Like, uh, and I must state that the LaRouches, like, not just like you know, 'cause I think Lyndon's dead now, but the LaRouches were invited to and went to Caleb's CPI conference.
We did?
Yeah, there was LaRouches at his conference.
Oh, yeah, that.
He's absolutely in bed with these dickheads. Like, his cult is styled off them, and he works with them. And I had an ex CPI member who was kicked out for disagreeing with Caleb, telling me that for spick for spack, Caleb is a LaRouche cult.
I believe it.
What's it? There needs to be a sort of, um, you know, with the people who want to, or just protesting about Russia this and Ukraine that. There needs to be some sort of counterforce that protests about the Palestinians, the Yemenis. We need to find a way to make it not dissipate, because I mean, this is something that really bothers me and Luke Dublin at the angles is that, you know, there was this big uproar, and then it died again. And there was so much like, at the least anti-imperialist, at the most revolutionary mindset, just unorganized amongst these groups. But because there's not enough communists out there, no one can properly organize it. And I failed myself because I didn't manage to stay in contact with someone I met from there who had a good mind for it, and I need to get in touch with them. Um, but what's it? It's one of them things where we want this. We need the protests to really kick off again. I will say though that Palestinian Action, I think it's called, they did some great work stopping a weapons factory and other stuff like that. I think it's 2 months ago, 3 months ago in Britain. Um, and they're doing good things, but they're not heavily reported on. I need to do a video on them. I keep forgetting to. But otherwise, things are dead. I will also say that, um, you know, everyone's all waving Ukraine flags here and there, but they banned the waving of Palestinian flags in a lot of places during the what's it? The crisis. I think it was during Ramadan when they shot. Was it Ramadan when they shot up the Alaska mosque?
Nakba, the Nakba Day protests.
That might have been at Nakba. Um, because they were having a celebration in the Alaska mosque, and the Israelis stomped in and shot them up. I mean, to be honest, they say when they attack the Alaska mosque, they've attacked it so many times it's quite hard to point it down. But
Yeah, they nailed it a couple of times.
I noticed that the pattern with Israel is every time there's a Muslim celebration, it's not just protest. Every time there's a celebration, they get a bit loud, whether they're enjoying themselves or whether they're fighting. It doesn't matter, or fighting against the Israeli system. They use it as an excuse to go in and gun people down because they're causing trouble. I mean, I was speaking with this elderly lass from Tasmania. Um, she's part Irish, and we talked a bit about what's it, um, colonialism and all that, and genocide, and the way that she put it is like, look at the Gaza Strip. It's a small slither of land that might as well be a graveyard. I mean, buildings are bombed day in, day out. They bomb hospitals, they bomb schools, housing blocks. It's utterly unbelievable, the situation that they're plopped in. Um, she said that the thing she'd like to do, as her like last thing she does before her final breath, would be to go spend time with what's it, the Australian natives in Tasmania. Um, it was really beautiful. Like, she's really hates genocide and racism, and um, it was a weird situation because I bumped into a lower class Australian living in Britain who wasn't like most Australians and actually had a really good position on these issues, and I had friends who were Australasian natives. Um, I am going to try and get an interview with her at some point, but I don't want to pressure her because she's in a really bad state. So I'm only gonna ask her if she's feeling go for it. But I'm gonna still be popping over there every now and then to speak with her because she's great to chat with. Um, what's it? Uh, duh, duh, duh. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention as well. Alexandria with a capital A. Sorry, Alexandra with a capital A and Alexandria with a lowercase a can get you banned. I don't know whether that's them not sticking up to the thing where there does seem to be a distinct use of capitals and not capitals. The word Arab is on the demonetized words list. What?
Arabs are getting
Armenian
canceled.
genocide.
Whoops. Don't mention that.
Asia, Asians, Asian, asexual, arthritis, arse, arrangements. That's a weird one. Ass clown, ass fuck, ass fucker. Obviously, they're demonetized for good reason. I don't think the word fuck should get you demonetized. I think it's weird. Swear words are normal. I mean, the word shit wasn't even a swear word originally. It was the old Germanic word for poo. But the Normans saw it as swearing, not because of the word itself, but because it's German. Asslick. Asthma. Asthma is banned. Or demonetized, sorry. Not banned wouldn't be the right word. Attempted, attacked, auntie, autism, autoerotic, awful, as with two Z's too, bitch with an exclamation mark, which I don't know how you say that on YouTube, but sure. Ball sucking. Bastinado. Oh, we got some Spanish words here. The bastard for the uninitiated. Benign prostate enlargement. That's so specific. What?
You're not allowed to talk about prostate.
1 second. I got something funny to do here. Ooh.
The nearest I can figure is that maybe because it has something to do with genitalia.
It's medical though, so I can't see why that would be. Why is it specifically benign? Okay, sue me, Google, sue me. It's like, censor this, bitch. Bladder cancer is blocked.
Yeah.
Bitcoin. Black Lives Matter. Black separatists. Blackalicious? What the fuck is Blackalicious? I don't get this nomenclature. Why do Gen Zs exist and why do they make up words they shouldn't? They remind me of the you know, like the weird word combos you'd see in the 80s. It reminds me of that fucking stupid shit. Well, yeah, of course, blacks is blocked. That's a racial term. Or racist term, sorry. And the way it's used. It was the replacement for the N-word when they couldn't use the N-word anymore in the 60s, 70s sort of time. Not like being told to not use the N-word anymore, stop people from using it. Still doesn't today. Breast... browsing? Browser?
Don't use the N-word. So anyway, I started screaming the N-word.
America in a nutshell.
You seen that that video where the guy does the parody of Pee Wee Herman and he's on the scooter, and it shoots off into the sky, and it goes, "Sayonara, N-word." And it's so, because he says the whole word, but it's so funny because somebody in the comments goes, "Australia, see you later, mate. UK, see you later." Like I don't know, some British slang that
See you
means,
later, old chap.
yeah, see you later, old chap. In Canada, oh, goodbye, eh? And then it says America. This.
He justifies the joke because there is a way to justify certain formalizations of humor. I guess the use of the word verbatim is still problematic in the retrospect of the joke, or I would say problematic. But I like the way the guys just turned around. I was like, "Yep, no, this makes sense for the way America is." Um, Although to be fair, Australians have their own real racist terms that they throw around instead. Cigarette is demonetizable.
Smoking.
Saying censored is. Black Lives Matter is too.
Saying censored.
Yeah, if you say censored, you get censored. So we're fucked.
I want YouTube to think about that.
You know what's interesting? Censor and censored is there, and censor is light, a light chance of demonetization. Censored is a medium chance of demonetization. The word censorship isn't there though.
Okay, that's kind of strange.
Cindy, cinnamon, circulation.
Do you know how many anime videos that's gonna ban?
Oh man, that's gonna ban too many. Uh, Too many. Isn't there like an anime thing called Cinnamon Roll or something like that? Like an actual like platform used for watching the
Oh no,
thing.
you're thinking of Crunchyroll.
Crunchyroll, that's it. I don't watch anime. Like I sound like someone's dad talking about it. It's like, yeah, my son was watching that Cinnamon Roll program with them with those animated women. Oh no, I gotta be proper whamming. The Star Wars fan base will get what I'm on about when I'm referring to the whamming crisis. People will be rejoiced to know that cockfucker gets you banned or gets you demonetized.
Okay, so we've got that taken care of. All right, so we can stop worrying about that. Hey, I
What the
mean
fuck?
priorities, man.
What does Columbine mean?
Oh, like the Columbine shooting?
Oh, okay, that's why that one's in the demonetized section. I was like, what's Columbine? It's a place? Is that named after Columbus? Because it's got to be the worst place ever named after Columbus.
Well, damn, there was a really easy joke I could have made there.
I'm dense. I've missed it.
Okay, you could make a reference to how Columbus came in and just murdered people, and that's what happened at Columbine. Some kids went in and just murdered a bunch of people.
Oh, you see, I don't know about the massacre.
Oh, I remember that one well. I was in high school when that happened. That was the big school shooting that set off the whole thing. Oh, I remember that very well.
What's it? I remember the what's it? The late 2000s school shooting. I mean, my mind. So when I was growing up, I grew up with just war being all I knew. I mean, uh, 9/11 happened. Uh, just before my birthday. Like, so like, what's it? I growing up in school, World War III was all everything the conversation was about, and it enforced a lot of my militaristic mindset and my want to be in the army, and also a lot of my viewpoints that corroborated my fascistic ideas. War never changes, except sometimes it does. But I guarantee you, everyone, Vosh and all them lot and make money, not only make YouTube lots of money, but track the fucking words of the establishment through and through. And Caleb, they don't have to be CIA to do that. Sure, someone with as bad of a history of criminality as Vosh may have a fucking may have a sweet deal where he gets to fucking do stuff like that. I don't fucking know, but I couldn't care. The guy's a moron. I mean, the CIA would be stupid if they hired the guy. They don't have to be working for CIA to be chatting their shit. I mean, the establishment is what they want to parry because it protects their class interests. And those people that will parry the establishment to a T will not get censored. It'd be funny to see Caleb Maupin get censored though. Don't get my hopes up, YouTube.
I think
It's one of those situations where it wouldn't be beneficial to us because we get censored too.
yeah, but I mean, I know YouTube's gonna do it sooner or later.
Everyone subscribe to me on Rockfin. Horrible teeth. British teeth moment. I drink too much tea and smoke too much weed. Don't drink tea, it stains your teeth, but do drink tea because it tastes nice. Conflict of interest. British tea floss is that bad we just started pouring loads of fluoride in the water everywhere. It's the stuff that's in toothpaste. But I guess we've basically reached the culmination of this situation. I would say that everyone should expect to see this getting worse, and that we're not gonna go quietly on this, and we're not gonna do what a lot of other dickheads on here do and get distracted with these debate bros here or these bread tubers there or that dickhead who said this weird thing online here. I'm using them as examples here because these people will never get censored, because these people are unimportant. The problem that we need to be attaining to is the real world issues, and people like Caleb, people like Haz, and all these other dickheads, be liberal, and the B stands for baby. What's it? These fucking morons are going to push you to wanna focus on internet personality here, internet personality there, and the only time they'll talk about the real world is when they want you to support the Eastern empires and the new the next changeover of imperialistic hegemony. Don't focus on this. We're not gonna give up saying what we need to say. We're not gonna default to those positions because they're more acceptable and won't get us censored. I mean, fucking Jason has been under this pressure for the entire time he's been on YouTube, to the point it's actually wrecked one of his channels. Like, with the way in which YouTube will try and censor you, not just because of the system, but the way in which people abuse this system and have abused it against content creators like Jason. Jason has been a massive victim of the abuse of the YouTube system of reporting videos, and especially in the last 2 years, it's started to ramp up again. But if you go back to 2010, 2011, he was having a really, really bad problem there as well. So it's not an uncommon issue for Jason, and in the 7 years that I've been watching Jason's channel, I've seen not only the past videos but also the videos from that point on, and learned a lot of, from Jason, and standing true to your principles and speaking about the issues at hand. Jason has never faltered from talking about imperialism. He's always talked about it as it is, and anytime it could be perceived that he's letting down on it, he's come straight at it sometimes within a day, to clarify exactly what his positions are, so people don't muddle up his views, and that he is adamantly straight and consistent with his beliefs as a Maoist third world is.
Thank you.
Absolutely, it's the model of which MRN takes forward is that we stand true to our principles. We stand with the most oppressed people of the world. It's our it's the it is the most important fight in which we push towards, and it's quite interesting that the Morpinites, including even quite high rank ones, will push this idea that it's not about all the oppressed peoples; it's just about the workers. The workers typically are the most oppressed peoples, but it is about all the most oppressed peoples. It's about fighting against the most oppressive system that exists today, and the actual core nature of the class system and its oppressive nature. Uh, these people want to neutralize this because they want to promote white supremacy. It's the same shit that Hitler did when Hitler dismissed the the care for the right of self determination and the over interest in different nations, as he would word it, of the Soviet Union, because the way he saw the Soviet Union was not that there was all these different nations. He saw them as the Mongolian horde. He actually specifically calls them the Mongolian horde several times in Mein Kampf. It's poorly translated, so it's typically Mongolian scum and something like that, but he's absolutely referring to them to Genghis Khan without being too direct. I mean, he goes a lot more into. I mean, he goes all over the place in history. He talks about the Greeks as well. I mean, the idea of the 300 Spartans against the Persians was Hitler's idea. The story existed longer than that about the war with the Persians, but originally it was the Greeks against the Persians, not just the Spartans. And Hitler is the last guy to change it into the 300 Spartans against the Persians, which the modern movies are based off. So I will say, do you want anything to say before I close up this?
No, I think we covered everything that we were going to cover.
Hell yeah, and it wasn't 6 hours, everyone. I take another shot. Got a chance.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, I have Muslim viewers. I shouldn't be encouraging alcohol. We take a drink of some good fluids. There we go. I'm being respectful. But no, like what's it? Shouldn't encourage alcohol anyway. It's not good for you. Take a drag of the spliff. There we go. Every time I should encourage that. We should drop the shots game. It should be bongs and spliffs. Um, what's it? I mean, a lot of culture surrounding marijuana actually does come from Semitic culture. Um, there's a lot of ideas that would suggest a lot of the Rastafari culture, the original Rastafari from Africa, I mean, would have been influenced by the Jewish Africans because what's it? Their ideas around marijuana are very, very, very similar. The spiritualistic connection with it all. I took what was not a really good joke really, and I'll probably get terrorized for it into an interesting, fascinating fact. Save myself. Um, but no, what's it? Our stance is not only with the poorest, the most oppressed, the biggest people of struggle, the colonized people of this world, to put it as bluntly as possible, the lumpen proletariat of the first world, which is predominantly colonized and um, remember speaking with the same conversation speaking before was speaking with African American comrades about eugenics and other issues like that. Is that the majority of the lumpen proletariat are disabled too, and you have the third world that has plights and strikes with the third world and struggles. Uh, to use the word that Muslims have been forced to be afraid to use because the imperial core has associated it with terrorism, but all it means is struggle, is jihad. That means struggle. There's a word that the Muslim people should be allowed to use without being related to these horrible terrorist organizations who are not engaged in jihad but are instead engaged in imperialistic activities under the guise of the British, the Americans, the French, the Germans, Chinese, or the Russians. Um, I mean, Muslim Brotherhood is literally a British organization. It was created by the British for British interests within Egypt and other areas of the Middle East as it began to branch out. Um, you know, the third worldists and our our allies with the Demarchists, the anarchists, other Maoists, and the few decent MLs that still exist. That's the few, not the many, and it is very very few. Are all in this struggle to side with the most oppressed people, decolonized people, and we stand by their struggle, but are also led by their struggle. They have a greater rate to dictate how we're seeing the world than any first world motherfucker, especially in the labor aristocracy. When the third world is saying jump, the first response typically is how high, because we've got to see Wagwan from their perspective. When they're telling us how it is, we're going to speak truth to what they're seeing, because their experiences uh, is a pathway to a much more genuine knowledge of the world that we will ever have. They live in capitalism in its most truest form, where it has been most exported. They see the despotic nature of it. They are not alienated from what this system is. They know exactly what it is. They know the evils of it, and they want it gone and destroyed. And their guidance, their struggles, and our struggle to do what we can to side with their struggles is the first contradiction to which we must be attaining our struggle towards. The oppression of the third world is one of the most important issues for us to be concerned about. The anti-war struggle and the fight to stop these issues is paramount. YouTube will be trying to censor that.
Very probably.
Absolutely. Red salute to you all. God bless, and we'll catch you very soon.